Well, I back at the castle today and was hopeful that the first thing I got started on this morning was marking off the porch with our chalk line and getting all of that trimmed off to get prepared for our soffit board, gutter board, whatever you guys want to call it, band board. However, I got here and we've got some pretty high winds and it looks like we have a piece of metal coming off of our back building. So that is step number one, fix that. Let's get that fixed so we can get back up here on top. Well, it's definitely windy today. See if we can get this sucker put back down and where it belongs and all that good jazz. Get our screw gun. Screws. Hopefully we don't need pry bars, but if we do, we'll come back. Down a little bit better here in a minute. Definitely seen better days. You guys a little bit better view. Hopefully. Oh yeah, that'll be better. I know those screws are not holding much, but I want to put them back in so that the rubber seals the water out. Just putting a new screw that actually holds the metal down just above them, as you can see there. Not the best solution, but it's the best solution for what we're doing right now. If I had a piece of metal, I would really like to replace this sheet, but I don't. So this will just have to be a future fix, which there's a lot of these on this project, but that's all right. The metal's obviously been weak for quite a while. It's got a couple of cracks, stress cracks in it. more sheets that don't want to stay down, so we'll probably put a few screws out through there. And honestly, with that being west, all these overlaps are actually facing the wrong direction because the majority of the wind comes from that way. So the overlap should actually be this way, with this opening here on the other side. But this is where we're at right now. I now know I have another thing that I gotta fix long term, which is okay. But we definitely need to make sure there's good screws on the other side of this seam everywhere we can. All right, a few more screws down through there, and we'll have this sheet back on. We'll be back to being waterproof, if you will. As soon as we get this done, we're going back up there. Well, we used way more screws than I anticipated was needed. Thankfully, I had plenty, but it is now back to being secure. It's way more waterproof than it was. Is it completely waterproof? Not 100%, I'd say 95%. So we're gonna call that good for now. We're not as worried about this back storage building as we are the castle itself. So we're gonna get back up there, show you guys what we're doing next. Well, while we were going up in the basket, we saw a fire hazard. So we are going to figure out where it goes, get it unplugged. It's in that room there. And I also noticed this morning that we have a leak in the roof, and I'm assuming it's right on that I-beam. I'm assuming it's that loose screw and that loose screw. So we're gonna get this patched up as well, get some good screws in. It looks like there's several loose screws down through there. So we're gonna get those screws tightened and or replaced, and or tightened and replaced. We got to figure out this cord and see if it's hot. It's got exposed wires. I smell something hot this morning, which I haven't been smelling. I don't know if that's that barge behind me because the wind's blowing straight to me, or if it was coming from this room. So we're going to figure out what this wire's doing, where it's going. All right, I got me a helper in there. Riley's on the inside. Riley, go down those steps there and find this wire right here.
Kind of yucky in here, Dad.
Oh, come on. Quit worrying about yucky.
Okay, what cord? Is it green?
This one right here. It's bluish green. I don't know if you call it green or blue or what, but I'm pulling on it. Just get in there. Come on. You're going as slow as a turtle in peanut butter. What are you doing? See this cord right here?
Yeah.
Oh. Hey, there's the end of it.
What the heck?
Well, I appreciate you going in there anyway.
Are you kidding me?
I'll let you know if I need anything else. Thank you.
You made me go in there for nothing?
Oh, it was for something.
No.
Because it was for me, which means it was something.
For you to pull something out by yourself?
Blah, blah, blah. Complain, 14-year-old complain, complain, complain. All right, let's get back to getting some work done. So we've got several screws that are stripped out. They're still holding well enough that the rubber is sealing, but they're not holding well enough to keep the roof from flopping around. We got a seam right here. And these screws are definitely part of the problem with our leak down below. So we're tightening up these screws. It's hard telling how long these screws have been here, but we're tightening up the ones that are loose. The ones that aren't tight, we're replacing with new screws. Gonna get this sucker back to being watertight. sure the high winds from the river have a lot to do with why this roof comes loose, especially down here right next to this seam where the wind blows up underneath of it. It would have been nice if this was one solid piece from top to bottom, but it's not, so we'll deal with it. Couple new ones there. Those didn't tighten up. Several of them did. A couple of them didn't. Well, that sucks. That's why that one leaks. I think I have some silicone here. I can put some silicone over both of those holes. That one leaked because they missed the board. The screw's just going through the metal and not holding anything. This screw now holds really well. That one holds decent, but not the best. So we're gonna put another one below it. That one holds, but not the best. So we're gonna put another one below it. Good. That next screw holds good. Wish I had an extension, but I don't. There's the one that didn't hold for the crap. I don't know if I'll hit anything above it, so let's go below it. That one didn't hold either. So I think all of these maybe missed. Let's check that one. Well, that one hit. That one hit. All right. Well, now I think if we get us some silicone, put over those two holes, I think we will have this part of the roof back to being dry. Every one of these screws probably need to be tightened. You guys can see this roof has seen better days, but you can see that seam right there is a little loose. And the beauty of this roof is when we go to finish the bottom side, there is insulation underneath of it. So we're going to insulate more. We're going to put closed cell foam under this entire roof long term. That's probably still a month away or so, but since there is insulation underneath of there, that allows us to spray closed cell foam on the bottom side to add insulation. And if this roof ever needs to be replaced, that board insulation, that's a 1-inch thick board, the foam will stick to it, and we can still take these panels off and put a whole new roof on. Or we'd have have someone come in and paint this roof, which would also seal it. And I think paint has like a 20-year guarantee or something like that. So we've got options. This is, again, we're starting all the way up there at the top, as you guys know, and we're going to work our way down level by level until we get over to this level, and then we'll worry about this roof. So at this point, we're going up on the deck. I'll show you guys what we're doing there. All right, since we know that this building is less than perfect, we're going to make ourselves an old school jig. I've marked a line here. Don't worry about this one. I've marked a line here, and I've marked a line here. That's exactly 4 feet. So now what we're going to do is we are going to put ourselves a screw at each of those points, right in the center of the line. It doesn't have to be very deep. We really don't care at this point about these screws long term. But right now, what this is going to allow is us to make an old school jig so we can determine where this roof line should tie in at. So you guys see I put a loop there over that other screw. Now I'm going to pull my line through, loop it around this screw, and then that's my point in which I need to tie a knot. Once we tie a knot here, we'll confirm. Once we tie a knot, we'll confirm that we have exactly 4 feet. Yes, I cut this out of an old chalk line. So right there you have it. That gives us, from loop to loop when stretched tight, that's not banjo string tight by no means, but from loop to loop we have 4 feet. I have pre-staged screws right here and right here. I'll show you guys what those are for. All right, so now we have our loop, our 4-foot cheater. We stretch this thing out here. We take our handy dandy pencil, we put it right in the hoop, we stretch ourselves tight, and we're going to give ourselves a line, an arc if you will. Yeah, the wood's a little grainy, it gets a little difficult. So now somewhere within this arc is where a board should hit. Now if we go over here, we do the same thing. Again, hook our string. We already have our pencil and our hoop. Make sure our string is right down on our tip. Pull her tight. It's kind of hard to do holding the camera, but pull it tight. Give ourselves an arc. So you guys see that arc. Now, what I have to determine, I got to go to the drawing board, take our 4-foot cheater, and we're going to put it in here because long term we may not use it. We may make us a jig so that we can set those angles. But now I have to go to the drawing board, get my point from here to here, figure out my distance here, and then what is that length out there. So then basically that board length, once I know that length, I can measure from there to there and find out where that intersection point should hit, which then will allow me to cut this off properly in chalk. Once I get a mark there and a mark there, I'll chalk across and then whack all that off, and that's where my board will come across straight. So let's do some math. Go to the drawing board and figure out what that length is. All right, so what we're doing is a good old Pythagorean theorem to determine the length of this board. I went through and I did all of this, and then I remembered that's the bottom of my window. My roof cannot come to the bottom of my window. I need to hold 6 inches down so that I can put the proper J channel and oh goodness gracious, what's the word I'm looking for? Flashing, so that the water that comes hits the wall and comes down actually goes over before it gets to the bottom of that window. So we're actually going to go with 33.5 of a backboard height, and 48 inches is the run at the bottom that you guys have seen before. So what we do here is pull out the good old calculator and we go 33.5 squared plus 48 squared equals the square root of that. Means that this board is 58.534. I only go to 3 decimal places because, I mean, come on. That's 34 thousandths larger than a 1/2 inch. So basically, we're going to cut this board 58.5. We're going to give ourselves maybe a pencil line width above 58.5. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut this board. We do know that this is a 90, so I'm hopeful that this ends up being a 30, 60, 90 triangle, and that actually is backwards, 60, 30 triangle. So we're going to cut our 58, so that angle will actually run back this way and then come up like, oops, come up like this. So this angle and this angle are going to be basically set on the 4x4 here. And at this point, we're going to call that set on the deck boards. And that's going to allow us to hopefully make a jig to where we can set this, figure out our length on that outside board, you know, nail it together, do something, screw it together that's slightly fabricated, so I can take this thing and go around the building and see how close I am. So yes, I could make a flat jig that sets against the actual 4x4, and I may end up doing that, but this is kind of just a way for me to double check myself and ensure that everything's going to look right, fall in right. And then what does that board need to do? Because when it comes off of these 4x4s, it's not going to be straight out square with this door. It's actually got to sit at an angle so that it connects this one to that one and so on. So let's get this length transferred to that board and get our angles set and get ourselves the first board cut. We'll double check it and we'll take that board and we'll trace it on the next board so we can make 2 of them. All right, so let's mark our 30-degree. Don't worry about these lines, those are from something else. It's when I was working on the gutters. There's our 30. Let's get that cut. Hit my other board. Now we need to measure our 58.534. That's on this top edge. So let's measure that out, 58.5, and we'll go a slight bit more. Now, we got to remember, that's the distance. Oh, get you guys off there. That's the distance to this point. Now we got to cut our 60-degree angle. Show you guys what I'm talking about here. Is what you have to envision. This board, I have too much stuff laying around. This board is going to set up there basically like that, and then here is our 58 mark, and then it's got to run back this way to set flat on that deck board. So we're going to take our handy dandy square, and that's actually backwards. Gonna take our handy dandy square, and we're coming all the way down here. Right now this is a 90. We gotta come down here to 60. Rotate that sucker back. Set you guys over here. Hopefully, nope, you're not gonna stand there, but you will stand there. We know that for sure. We're still at our pivot point, which is right here at the crook of this speed square. Run ourselves over to 60. Oops. These steep angles sometimes get interesting when you're left-handed. I'm gonna block your guys' view, but mark out this 60 here. Hello. Take a good straight edge. Now again, you all, I did not do the math on these angles. This is honestly a guess. We might be a little bit off. If we end up wasting a little bit of this board, it's not the end of our life. So that should allow us to set properly on the 4x4 and properly on the deck. Let's get her cut and find out. I don't know why I'm still wearing this harness, but I am. So I guess we'll just wear it for a little while. Pushing a little too hard, and it looks like I need to set my blade just a hair deeper, but that's all right. This is just for a jig. It doesn't have to be perfect by no means. Well, I could be wrong. This could be totally way the heck off, but let's go out and try it. Well, I tell you, that's not far off for this jig. Now, one thing to keep in mind is when this board is the actual top board, this board here is not going to be the top board, top of the truss, if you will. But when this board does connect the gutter board that goes out here to the actual wall that's going to be built here, that will be cut totally different. That will actually be cut this way, and it will get nailed on, and then I'll put a shackle on the inside because there will be some load there to ensure that that doesn't ever slide down. I will cut a bird's mouth to kind of give you guys kind of what I'm talking about here. Is I'll cut straight over 1.5 inches and then down at the proper angle so that that gutter board will set in here like that pencil is, and then we'll nail it here, and then we'll shackle it to this gutter board and this piece here. So my math does not look as though it was that far off. I am a slight bit further than my 4 foot. I believe it's because of the angle that I cut there. Once I cut it the other way, that'll change that a little bit. But this is kind of what I'm looking for. Where does this board hit whenever I put this hip board on here? This ends up making, I think people call it a hip valley. But when I put this board on here, and it actually stays there, and I put this board on over here, or that board on over there, this is actually the next one I'm going to cut, because I've got my 4 foot mark out there also. When I put those two on there, what's that distance out there, which then I can cut a board and attach it to the top of both of these to give myself a jig so I can walk around here and mark it off appropriately. Let's cut the next board. Now, the beauty of making your first board correct is it gives you an awesome jig for your second board. So now if you just line up your 2 boards, you don't have to pull any dimensions, no measurements, none of that craziness like we just had to do the first time. You line her up nice and even, Looks like we need to bump that down just a little bit. Not much though. Once we get her nice and even and aligned everywhere, all we got to do is take our handy dandy pencil. Well, son of a gun, that thing didn't want to stay locked today. Mark this one line. Get this board out of the way. Grab our saw and cut her off. And now we have two boards. Yep. Two boards that are the exact same. Let's go put them both in their spots and see what we got. All right, I have done math. I have measured. I have tried to make this jig. I think this building is far enough off that I'm gonna have to back up, and instead of cutting the porch off first, I believe it's gonna simplify my process if I start removing these doors and framing in that opening to give me a nice straight, get the building good and square as close as I can. And then I can come over here once my wall fills in this hole. I can measure out 4 feet, 4 feet, 4 feet multiple times and chalk a straight line and then string line it and carry that to the point in which, and heck, when I say string line it, I can attach a board, do the same thing over there, do the same thing up here. Now I can actually run me a board from point to point so I can get my actual intersection point. And the reason I say that is, yes, I have an arc out there. When I move this board, it'll hit that arc everywhere until I get way over here and start pulling in. So yes, that arc is correct. Yes, this board is cut correctly. However, I still don't know the exact intersection point of angle to angle, and I believe by giving myself that straight line, this straight line, I know I have a straight line right now, but this edge right here sticks out, so I've got to do all kinds of math to determine how much that, screw that, not doing it. So that's today's video. Today's video was basically, we fixed a couple of roofs, we did do some math, we did get some more stuff taken care of up here, and we did figure out that we need to go about it differently. So it's still a success. Tomorrow I'll come back and we'll start taking these doors down and framing in one at a time. The reason I'm not going to take all the doors down in one whack is because I don't need a wide open space, because it is supposed to rain tomorrow, and right now I can close this door. Once I frame this in, I will put house wrap on the outside, and it still allows me access out the next door, and so on, so on, so on, until I get to the very last door. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I know we didn't necessarily accomplish chalking off the deck, but we will get there. And as always, like, comment, subscribe.